This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm your host, Steve Gould. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is episode 90. Believe it or not, we got 90 in the bank, in the can. So grateful for that. Grateful for you guys. Thank you for the continued support. Thank you for the rating and reviewing on iTunes. Please keep going and doing that. Right off the top here, I want to get roll call down. I want to thank Ilian Rogers, Tony Fahey, Corey Payne, Jacob Ruth, Rich Emery, William James Long of William James Long Investigations. Congratulations to you, sir. Just graduated. Is now a deputy sheriff. Thank you, Samantha Harper, the great Gary Steiner, Richard Wilson, Scott O'Donnell, David Diaz, Timothy Wright, and that's it, folks. Thank you guys so much. Those are the subscribers who donate every month and kind of help me pay all the subscriptions I have to and put a little bit in the bank there. So I really, really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. And our sponsor, Hero Industries, out of Corona, California, where right next to where I used to live in Ontario. So if you have a fundraiser coming up, or are you putting together an event that needs something to help market it, holidays are coming, you need gift ideas for your company or organization, Hero Industries has you covered. Hero is known for their cute, adorable canine hero plushies and their stunning challenge coins, but that's not all they have to offer. Hero also offers custom bottle openers, lapel pins, cigar cutters, tactical teddy bears, and custom badges. Any logo, any badge, any size, any shape. You pick how you want it. Just send Hero your logo and how you want it, and Hero makes it happen. Hero's excellent customer service makes it easy for you to design your item and offers a variety of accessories to pair with your order. Hero Industries has been working with law enforcement, government agencies, and canine handlers throughout the U.S. since 2000 by providing top-notch service with amazing details and one-of-a-kind products. Check them out on Instagram. It's hero_industries_inc, or go to their website, www.hero-industries.com, and check them out there. It's a great company. It's family owned. It's pro law enforcement. They're really big into customer service. They listen to the podcast in the office, and I'm very grateful to have them. So thank you for that sponsorship. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 90. I have none other than the founder of Street Cop Training, Dennis Benigno. He has been in law enforcement since 2001. He's going to give us a lowdown on his law enforcement history, but I know him personally as being an active police officer. I see the trainings come across my desk once in a while. He's really kind of building an empire. He's got a fascinating podcast, Street Cop Training podcast, on iTunes or anywhere you can get podcasts. It's a really great podcast. He has long form interviews like this, but he also has little shorts in there that just kind of a nice little refresher for search and seizure issues, for canine issues, for what you can and what you can't do. It's I don't know, it kind of keeps you sharp. I really appreciate it, especially somebody who does long form interviews. When I see someone doing little microcasts mixed in with long form, not only am I jealous, I want to listen in and see what they have to say. So without further ado, let's bring on Dennis. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Steve, I'm honored to be here. Appreciate you asking me to be on your podcast, and thanks, man.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your law enforcement history.
Got on the job 19, turned 20 in the academy. Had to go to 3 different police academies. Started in corrections in New Jersey, which is a sworn position here. Did it for about 2.5 years, including the academy. Got picked up by a federal agency where we're the police. And I can put that out there. I worked for United States Park Police. So I went to FLETC in the summer, which for those who are familiar with FLETC, that's probably the worst time to go, being it's southern Georgia.
Yeah.
So I looked significantly different at the end of that. And then a couple of years, I was with them for about 20 months, and the agency that I finished my career in was a agency in a hometown that I worked at in New Jersey. I had to go to the academy for the 3rd time, which was very disheartening to hear because I only have to go to a third academy.
Why is New Jersey and New York like that? It's like every single agency requires its own academy, right?
Well, it's not that. It's I don't know. I think it's old school mentality. And I actually could have been waived through the Police Training Commission, but you had to have your chief sign off on it, or the head of a law enforcement agency. And they just didn't, they didn't need to save money, so they really didn't care. And they're like, you're going to go as a recruit.
I get you. They might as well have you do that bonding experience, right?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do, bonding experience. Shaving my head with a Bic razor every morning, shining my shoes and doing 2 hours of homework a night for 6 months straight.
Wow, that's pretty hardcore.
So the police academies in New Jersey are paramilitary. I mean, and very much so. They're not easy academies, and there actually are standards here now, which are probably good, where you have to meet physical requirements at all county police academies in order to progress to graduation, which I kind of agree with, especially in a state where we have a lot of police officers, or a lot of people trying to become police officers, and the threshold or the standard is set a little bit higher. And I think we get a little bit better of a cop here, to be quite honest with you.
Why not? If you have that many people interested, you can afford to do that,
right?
For sure.
Right. So yeah, it sucked.
Yeah, I remember when I went through the MPTC Academy up here, the MBTA, the train cops ours was paramilitary, wasn't sleepover, but it was paramilitary. But the MBTA, they were shaving heads, and they were like that one notch above. Like when we all went to a memorial run or something, they were always just a little bit more terrified looking.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it wasn't fun. The last academy was the worst academy, unfortunately. And, I'd been on the job at that time for 4.5 years. And I was like, fuck, I'm going back to this. Can I curse here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So I'm like, fuck, I'm going back to this academy again. I'm like, of all academies, it's got to be this one. Like the one with the worst reputation in the state. I've been around in law enforcement for a while. Basically my whole adult life, I was in law enforcement. And I knew a lot of people. Matter of fact, even some of the people that were drill instructors in my academy were friends of mine. We had a big class, and they had 8-10 drill instructors, and I knew people. And they were actually surprised to see me. Like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, just yell at me.
Yeah, well,
and and that's probably where a lot of the motivation to create a training company came from. Was, I guess, being a recruit in 3 academies. They used to call me the professional recruit in the beginning. Because in 4.5 years, I went to 3 police academies, essentially amounting to somewhere in the ballpark of 70 to 75 weeks of training academies in 4 years. So almost a year and a half. Yeah. So, I mean, this is real stuff.
It's making me feel sad, like inside. I can't. It's brutal.
Here's what it is, brother. I think my first academy was probably the best life lessons for me on what I could possibly do and beyond what my expectations were. So it taught me a lot about life, where people say to me now, like, you do these crazy things. You're on the road, you teach a class for 11 hours, and then you drive 3 and you do it again the next day. And I'm like, yeah, you haven't gone to a police academy, have you? And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, well, pulling an 11-hour day with in 5-degree weather while it's snowing outside PTing, and doing this 5 times a week for an extended period of time. How can I complain when I literally have to just stand in front of people and be funny and informative?
That's a really great point. There's things in my life where just police work in general, just like the police academy, and then doing doubles and working just grueling hours. Like a normal friend of yours does a 40-hour week, and it's like, whoo, forget it. And then you're like, well, we'll just do that, and then later, at night we'll do that. And they're like, what? No, this is like
you've been stuck on a job starving for 9 hours, and there's no listen. You learn quick to bring snacks.
Right. Always have granola bars.
Are you a cop if you don't have 3 power bars in your duty bag? You know what I mean? Because you're gonna need them. You ain't leaving a homicide scene for go have a slice of pizza. Yep. Barricaded subject. You sit on that 7-8 hours till somebody's smart enough to get you some relief. But back to what I was saying earlier is, I think a lot of my motivation for creating a training company was the fact that I was able to sit through 3 academies as a recruit and realize that they pretty much offered nothing to help us do our job. And that's where a lot of my motivation came from. Then field training programs that weren't working, and in-service training programs that weren't working. So we spent a lot of time training as police officers, but the quality of it is very subpar. And we'll do what we can to try to make that experience better, where police officers can, find more valuable content and information and in an entertaining manner as well. That's really our motivation. And in turn, that really does save lives overall collectively, including every facet of what that means, from police suicide to police prevention and safety, and to protecting the public. So I always tell people my two motivations are making sure cops stay alive and making sure bad guys go to where they belong. That's it.
I like that. Yeah, I really like your podcast, Dennis. I like
man.
how it's you're very good at communicating. Some of the ideas are complex, and when you get into case law and all these other things, but it's good for, I've been in law enforcement 14 years, but it's, even when you talk about the simplest thing for 7 minutes, it's a good reminder to me. Like, I like to hear it. I like to hear it again, and I like to hear that it's not so complicated. You know what I mean? I'm the kind of guy, I'm the kind of officer that likes to be prepared. I read a lot. I don't want to not know, the answer. So I kind of like, I'll drive around and I'll if I hear a call on the radio, we have regional dispatch, I'll be like, what would I do with that caller? Who would I call? And what assets would I arrange? You know what I mean? I'm always trying to figure out, like, what would I do? And your podcast kind of fills in. Your podcast is like that. It kind of gives the answer to a lot of those little questions you might have. And I like that. And I like the way you come at it. I like how raw it is. I like how it's, boom. Hey, I got this question today. I thought I'd just address it real quick. So you have that, but you also have like a long form stuff going on, the interviews and stuff like that. But it's neat, man. I really dig it.
Thanks, man. I think, essentially I'm just trying to provide value to people who are looking for the answers that actually aren't that hard to find. And, was the magic of when I began reading case law. I said, oh my God, I found these things that I've been looking for my whole career. I've been looking for these answers, and I can't believe I found a book that has them in them. And so I figured if I felt that sense of relief, well, other people would certainly feel that sense of relief. And once I began to read it, and I've been reading it for, 12 years now, you're able to digest it with more practice, and then I'm able to communicate it back where it's understandable. Maybe that's a little bit of a talent in and of itself. And believe me, with all humility, my talents are very limited. And if you'd like to know what my limited talents are and where they stop, you can watch me play basketball. So, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and I just try to triple down on what I'm good at. And fortunately enough for me, some of the things that I'm good at end up being good for the world and good for good for a lot of good stuff, a lot of important things. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, you say stuff that you just need. It's just good to hear. I listened to one of your podcasts recently, and you're just like, you're basically like, just be normal. Like, don't be a stormtrooper. Just be normal. Talk to people normally if you're looking for consent. Like, you don't want to be the highway trooper, with the hat down in the person's face. Like, just act like a normal guy. That's it. People have to respond to you. They have to want to let you, they want to say yes to you, but you have to make them. Like, you can't just be like overbearing. You gotta, and you can learn that. You can change the way you approach people. You can.
Steve, did they tell you that in the academy or no?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So that's my point, dude, is like, here we are having a 30-second banter, and the amount of value and impact it'll have on your career on just being kind and polite to people and professional will save you just so much trouble in the long run and get so much more cooperation from a difficult task at hand. And that's what I'm saying. Like, why wasn't that talked about in the academy? Why wouldn't one person say, hey, don't be an asshole, and it's going to really go far for you in your career. And by the way, treat your coworkers nicely. And if you're get into a position of authority as an administrative level, don't forget where you came from and treat people well as well. So there's a lot of things that are very basic, and we tend to overlook and go into complex areas without really even building a foundation for people to grow on.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, one example I can think of, and there's a bunch from my academy. It's a 6-month academy, and it's a lot of training. And for accidents, they had accident recon come in, and they dragged the sled, and they showed us this, and we took measurements. We get back to our department, and you're in the cruiser with a senior patrolman, and he's like, get out at the time, now it's all computerized, but when I started, we had the carbon books with like 7 copies for.
Right, yeah.
They never showed us how to fill accident booklet. So like, didn't they show you this in academy? I'm like, no, they never even showed us this. They showed us accident recon. They're like, well, that's way above your head. You don't know how to fill out an accident template? Nope. They just didn't do it.
How about this? I mean, I asked this question, and I'm probably sound redundant for people who do tune into our podcast. Who went to an academy that taught them how to catch bad guys at the very basic level? What? Who? And I ask this question constantly, and nobody ever says, "Oh, they taught us how to catch bad guys." So why are we going to police academy to not learn how to catch bad guys? What police officers do? I don't know. Right. But you know what I did learn? How to swing a stick at a bag for 20 weeks and yell, "Get back, get back." And you know what I also learned? You'll never do that in your career. So it's a good thing we spend 40, 50, 60 hours on swinging a stick at a bag, screaming, "Get back, get back," on a device that you'll never remove from your belt and literally just cause L1 pain in your spine.
Yeah. There's a lot of padded hours. They just want to put the hours on the paper. That's what they want.
You know what? And we just talked about this today in a company meeting where I said, we know that there's elective hours where they're not required by the state, and we want to fill in those hours and give police academies something to play virtually rather than try to figure out what they're going to do with the 4 extra hours today and take out coloring books. Basically. Right? Like it's just,
well, movies,
in some sense, right? Like what are we? Oh, we found something on YouTube we think is like, no, we're going to give you something to play that's going to have impact in somebody's career, may save a life. And that's important to us.
That's
and
awesome.
By the way, we're not going to charge anything for it. Here it is. Go make sure our brothers and sisters don't die in the line of duty, because inadvertently police academies are killing cops. And if you don't think you are killing cops and you run a police academy, let me ask you how many times you're now offering. This is not for all police academies, but how many of you at police academies are implementing a passenger side approach as a superior approach to a vehicle on a traffic stop versus a driver side approach? And the answer is we don't do that. Well, you're making a huge friggin' mistake, and shame on you for not. When you have the audacity to step up and run a police training academy, you better be searching for better solutions on how to do the job better. And if you're failing to do that, you're failing everybody. And that's the
Yeah. I love the passenger approach. It scrambles their brains. When you come up on the other side, they're like...
Steve, for people who don't know who I am, I mean, I'm going to give a piece of advice for the police officers who are listening. On a traffic stop, element of surprise is your number one. It's the best thing you have on your side. And I don't care what it looks like and how unprofessional it looks. You should really be acting like it's a game of how am I going to scare the shit out of this guy or girl or this group of people on this traffic stop. So even acting silly, like ducking down behind the car to try to figure out so they don't know where you're at, and then reappearing somewhere, slicing the pie, ducking down, crouching down, trying to get in a position off to the right, maybe at a 90 or a 180 before you make an approach. Like, so what? It doesn't look the way everybody did it. You're going to be alive if that person is preparing to cause harm to you or attempt to take your life. And if you can't look a little silly doing it with the intention to save your life, this probably isn't the field for you.
That's a great
You'll
point.
Die.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Good advice.
Dennis, can you tell us about your first hot call you responded to in your law enforcement career?
I wish I knew, dude. All I can say is this is like, there is nothing better in the world than being in a pursuit. And if there's anything that I miss out of law enforcement the most, it is doing 130 miles an hour chasing a car. And that, especially when you're a good driver, like yours truly here, with all humility, I'm a very good driver. Matter of fact, I could tell you a funny story. We had a pursuit, and my partner, and I'm not going to say who he is because I love him, and he work with this company now, and his name may be Sean Grogan. We were in a pursuit one evening with a car. We didn't know what we were pursuing for, but we were in a pursuit, and the guy wouldn't stop, and we chased. And the lieutenant okayed the chase. And I was screaming. If you watch the video, I'm in the car screaming to him, like, hit the fucking gas. Press the gas. It's a Crown Vic. It's a dog. We got to keep up. Come on, man. Yeah, like, right? So I'm just like, you can't let it come out of first gear. You got to keep it in second, keep the momentum going. You can't drop that thing down below 5,000 RPMs or else it's never going to move again. So I'm screaming the whole time. And essentially we called it off. And I don't think it was a bad call because at the time it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Our nightclubs were getting out and the guy was heading right towards the nightclub. And there's a lot of people at that nightclub coming out onto the highway. Well, the guy's been crashing. But anyway, I came back into headquarters and I said, he goes, I'm glad you guys got that guy eventually. I go, yeah, no, everybody did a nice job. And I said, thanks for not calling it off right away. He goes, yeah, no, you're a good driver. I go, it wasn't me who was driving. It was Grogan. He went, and I never get the look on his face. Grogan was driving. It wasn't you. And I went, no. He goes, oh my God. I thought you were driving. I go, no, it's junior guy night tonight. Oh, next time you get a pursuit, let me know who's driving. It's either you or him. If it's you, you can chase all day. I've seen your videos. I've been in the car with you. I don't have a problem with that. Anybody else, I get a little nervous. So, I mean, I've had a lot of wonderful times, and I've enjoyed my career in law enforcement because I went to work every day. I remember when I first met my wife, she said to me, I never met somebody who was looking forward to go to work. And I did. I really did, especially those 80-degree perfect weather days when and you knew it was going to be chaotic. I just enjoyed it tremendously. Really? So a lot of good stories, but I don't think anything sticks out on what the first hot call would be.
Okay, so nothing like that you suffered a little new guy trauma from or anything like that.
I remember being in my first pursuit in Washington, D.C. with my field training officer, Eduardo Delgado, who was a good dude. And I remember being in a pursuit and I'm driving and him saying to me, breathe, and me just sucking air in, right?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't breathing. I was fucking locked up and I was in my first pursuit and like literally my first week, we were in Southeast DC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we could, I was in a place that I didn't know. And, I was 22 years old and I have been waiting for this moment my whole life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
so, that was it.
Did you have to talk on the radio as well?
Thank God I didn't, because I couldn't say a word.
Yeah.
And, here's another thing that I say, like, again, that comes back to just a failure of training. And by the way, at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, we did I'll give them credit on that. They did have courses where we were going through pursuits. Have you ever been to that place? It's nuts. They got the craziest training facility in the world.
The town I used to work for in the Cape has a national park. So I used to go to calls with those guys, but I only heard from them what it was like.
They have like 5 tracks out there. They can tie all the tracks together and you can run we would run like our final things. We would run like 10-minute pursuits on those tracks. That's how big those tracks are. Wow. They're huge.
They got all the money.
And yeah, well, there's a lot of money. Yeah, the problem is they don't pay any of the fucking federal guys the money. They just use it all for training. The federal guys get paid. Some of them really just make some crapola of money, especially compared to Northeast salaries, right?
Right.
Especially Boston PD, not own. Right, those guys are killing it.
I know. It's like $250,000 for a patrolman. It's like, what?
I know, dude. I fucking know. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't, fortunately enough, have to call that out. And, but again, a lot of this stuff could be, we make light of it, but it's important for a recruit or somebody who's new as an officer to know what it's going to feel like to be in a pursuit like that and to be prepared for it through training. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I said a couple of podcasts ago, I can still remember being brandy new and then looking behind me and seeing I heard, because my window was open, a head-on collision on the highway, and I turned around and there it was in the middle of the road, just 2 totaled cars. And I was like, because I had to get on the radio, and I was like, my heartbeat was like,
you didn't know what to say, right? You didn't even know what to say.
Yeah, I'm just like, just don't sound like a little bitch.
So, I mean, listen, I think everybody's hearing this and they're new. I think you need to rehearse in your head and immediately start putting through your brain scenarios and what you're going to do in them and what you're going to sound like on the radio. And I think one of the best skills we all learn in the beginning is to think about what you're going to say before you say it.
Yep.
And then it starts to become more natural as you go along. Dude, it's funny you bring that up. I mean, my first call, I'll never forget, my first day at a field training, I got put on day shift, 6 a.m. We had 5 shifts. And my first call was me and another guy I graduated the academy with a double fatal, car into a pole. Oof. With 2 ejections and 1 guy pinned. In the car, one dead in the car, 2 dead in the car, 1 pinned in the car, 1 ejection into a fence.
Oof.
And, we get there and people are on scene. It's rush hour. It's 7 a.m. It was a slick. And dude, I had heard about agonal breathing. I'd never seen it before here on my first day. And I got 2 people doing agonal breathing who succumbed to their injuries later on. And I was like, just do something. And fortunately enough, this guy, Vinny, was on patrol. He showed up and had time on. He took over. He started calling for a helicopter. And I just jumped in the car, grabbed an ambu bag, and started trying to put air into these dudes who were just tied up onto this pole. And thank God Vinny came. You know, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Those are terrifying moments as a young law enforcement officer when it's like because you think it's going to be all. It'd be great if it was all bad guys, but a lot of it is severe and terrible trauma done just to humans that you just get sent to.
Listen, I count my lucky stars that I never had to deal with a kid thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you don't got to bring it up. And especially now being a father of many, I'm just glad that I never had to experience that, because I've heard of the guys telling the stories of, we had a girl maybe a few years prior, actually, because I know she came to the jail when I worked there. She had smothered, I think, 2 or 3 of her kids and killed them in our town. Oh. And I've heard the stories of that and having to respond to that and what that was like for the detectives. And that's bad stuff, dude. Especially if you have kids. Yeah, I got 3 kids myself, and sometimes someone will come on the show and I ask them to don't hold back. Tell me what you got, and when the kid stories come out, it's like, my eyes just glaze over like a shark. I'm just like, yeah, dude, for sure. I got 4. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do not want to absorb that stuff. Dennis, can you tell me about a bizarre or strange thing you've dealt with? Dude, I worked in an area that was busy. So to think that there was one bizarre or strange thing, off the top of my head, I don't know what I'm going to come up with. And I know you sent show notes over, but I don't think I got them as preliminary questions. So I don't want to sound like I'm a bad guest. No. And also with a cop's brain, you probably have 200 things, but to a normal person, they're bizarre and crazy. But to you, that was just your job. Yeah, I mean, I can give you one where I often tell the story. One time I can remember getting nauseous. I got a pretty strong stomach, and I have really good EQ, so things don't really affect my mind too much. I kind of roll off my shoulders. But I had a guy jump off a bridge and exploded like a watermelon. Ooh. And that was bad enough as it is. It was just like one big blob. And the part that got me is when the medical examiner came, and I actually get nauseous even talking about it, and started picking his brains up and putting him into a Ziploc sandwich bag. And not even like the full size, like Big's gallon freezer bag. I'm talking like literally a Ziploc. He's just picking up pieces of brain. I'm going to need 50 more bags. And I just remember thinking like this is, and then, we had to have the fire department come out and rinse the area off. It's just a glob of blood and guts. And what can we do with it? They're not going to do. Got to come out and just hose it all down. Yeah. That was fucking nasty. That's unbelievable. I've never been to a jumper call, but I heard if they're up high enough that it's just insane. Dude, like the body, like it looks like a pumpkin when you smash a pumpkin. Like, I know that I was around during 9/11 and I was just actually getting on the job at that time. My father worked for the Port Authority, and he told me a lot of guys that he knew who were working at the Trade Center, and people were coming down and literally exploding. They were just exploding. They were hitting the ground not to believe me, it was a very, very difficult thing for all of us to go through. But, you had hundreds of people jumping to their death. And I mean, it was, he said that his friends told him they were just exploding as they were hitting. Yeah. So. Yeah. I've heard that before. And it's like when I always think when the ceremonies are on TV and they read all the names and all that, and everybody's there in their nice uniforms and all that, I always think about those accounts that I hear from guys that were there where it was like you said, people explode. I mean, the humanity of it, the trauma, the insaneness of that day is just incomprehensible, because everything we get now, it's been long enough, everything's whitewashed. Everything you see, every memory you see of it is kind of like, don't forget, and it was bad, but just how bad it was, like you're saying. We're right over the bridge from Manhattan, so I watched the plane hit the second tower in real life. I was delivering pizza that morning. I was like I said, I started the academy 10/9/01, so it was a month after 9/11 hit. So I was already in the law enforcement mindset. I was 19 years old, and I turned 20 in November in the academy. It was a very real thing, and everybody here knew somebody that was affected by it, if not murdered in the attack on the United States that day. Very, very strange thing. Almost as strange as working in, and I hate to compare the two, but the only feeling I can think about that's comes somewhat close to that is working in the midst of Hurricane Sandy when it struck New Jersey. That was a rough one.
Oh, really?
That's when I actually felt emotionally like I was getting beaten up and I couldn't. I was just in a funk. I mean, I wasn't like suicidal or anything, but it was the first time I really felt helpless as a cop and felt very vulnerable. And that was for a guy who was, I would consider to be, and I'm sure people who worked with me would say, is a very, very well-rounded, strong cop who people like to work with and have on the road when they were on the road. It's a time in my life where I felt helpless for sure. Really?
That's, why is that? Like what specifically for the flooding and the,
your unableness to help people who were in trouble. We're not properly equipped. We didn't have the equipment we needed for the kind of rescues we needed. We lost all radios. We lost all computers. So we were riding single O cars at that time because we went out on afternoons and we didn't double up yet. And, you're just kind of like sitting around and you would go into a place to rescue some people who needed to be rescued. And you would go in, get everybody into the cars to get them to a shelter. And you turn around and, we're in Chargers and the flooding would not permit you to come in or to leave the same way you came in. And like, you're turning like, well, how the fuck do I get out of here now? And, really spending a lot of time going around and trying to find alternate routes. And you really have to know the area and grow up there to know how to get back into town to serve better. And then
damn,
bro, like literally stop signs and debris flying past the police car at 150 miles an hour. I didn't want to get out of the goddamn car. I was terrified. I'm like, Jesus, we had stuff just catching on fire due to the storm. Like we had fires going everywhere. We had, we were on the water. So we had boats coming up on main roads and like just the utter carnage and destruction. And the days to follow were probably some of the worst examples of humanity I've ever seen in my life. People really went into panic mode and became very selfish. Yeah. People were trying to loot. And there was a big burden on us to have everybody come in, and there was a lot of off-duty work and there was no gas, and it was fucking chaos. And we had fights going on everywhere. We just couldn't handle it. And you couldn't do enough. And it was I had never felt so uncomfortable in my life, to be quite honest with you.
Like
I'll never forget those.
Damn.
I just felt like, dude, this could go really bad and I'm on my own and nobody's coming. Like, and we were working at an agency where it was common at times when squads were fat and overlapped that we'd have 25 guys doubled up on the road in the 26 square miles. And then that's only patrolmen. It didn't include detectives that were on at that time and supervisors. So, you could have at sometimes 50, 60 guys available in 26 square miles. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And to know that nobody was available, you might get stuck somewhere and be there for a while and God knows how long till, because we didn't have the equipment. We're not equipped for water rescue. We weren't trained for water rescue. It hit us like a ton of bricks and houses were going down. And, fortunately enough, I don't know of any lives that were lost in our town, but there was a lot of lives lost, man. I mean, I think Staten Island opened up a morgue at like one of their high schools. They were just dragging bodies into it, coming off the South Shore. People were just getting flooded out and killed. They were just drowning. They had like 120 people die in a storm in Staten Island, New York. And they were just making makeshift morgues until they can get them to proper places.
That's insane.
It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, were you guys you're probably just working, getting released to sleep and come back?
We weren't even, dude, like there weren't even anywhere to get food, nothing was open. It was just utter destruction. So if you were hungry, fortunately enough, it's a busy enough area. There was no diner open to go have dinner with your friends and grab a burger at night. It was just insanity. It was absolute, complete, chaotic insanity. And I think the exhaustion from having to work 16, 18-hour shifts for 7 to 10 days really caught up with me emotionally as well, and just took a toll on me, for sure.
Oh, yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. It's insane, yeah. Especially when we're so my wife and I talk about that a lot, because we're kind of like junior homesteaders out here in Western Mass. We have animals and stuff, and just the fragility of our lives, but we're out here in the woods, but we have power and we have air conditioning and heat and all that stuff. It's like we lose power for one day anywhere in the Northeast, and it's like, I have no power. It's like people are like, it's almost bedlam then, just losing power. The grocery stores start emptying out. There's nothing available. It's like people just lose their minds. So
they do.
An event like that is just totally insane.
Yeah. So those are some of those stories there. People wanted to hear some of the things that we go through, especially from a very resilient police officer. That was a moment in my career that I'll never forget of how I felt. I've never felt that way in my life. And I don't know if I ever feel that way again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I hope not.
That's because I'm not a bitch, Steve. I'm a fucking tough motherfucker.
I hear you. I'm getting that. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Dennis, well, maybe you just answered this question, but I was going to ask you about the most intense or terrifying call you've been on.
I think that's it, man. I think that's it. I don't know. I don't want to sound redundant, and I think I would do the last story disservice if I tried to circumvent it with another story. But again, I just want to remind everybody, I mean, thousands of calls in my career because we worked in a very busy agency.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question, kind of off the little boilerplate question list that I have. It's 7 inches.
Thank you.
So, that was it. Interview over.
All right.
Asking for consent to search cars. Not something I've ever been big into. Just haven't been. I was never like trained to do that. And I kind of came from an agency that was kind of like, not a city agency, more of a town. And that kind of thing wasn't really taught. It wasn't like, try to get into people's cars and get them out. That wasn't like, although on Cape Cod, the population's triple, quadruple. And you were getting heroin and crack and meth out of cars. But it wasn't like a thing you were really taught or was even like suggested that you do. Like they didn't like say, hey, you should ask to search people's cars. But the more I've done this podcast and the more I've got to know cops in bigger places and where it's busier and where there's really, you're kind of coming in contact with more cars where it would behoove you to ask them. And, like you kind of said in one of your podcasts, it's kind of like striking out at the bar. It's like, well, you're never going to get the lady if you never ask, that type of thing. I
probably said it something like this because it's typically redundant when I say it is, if you don't ask, you'll inevitably be in front of the computer at 2:00 in the morning with your pants around your ankles.
I was cleaning it up for you, but yes, exactly. So you were saying in your experience, and you've had, I think you've had over 10,000 plus motor vehicle stops in your career.
I would say so.
Okay. 1,500 arrests. So, you were saying you're able to most times get someone to comply with that request.
Yeah.
And what's the secret to that?
Well, let me discuss consent just a hair, and then I'll go into why that's important, or how to accomplish something like that. The reason I was forced into learning how to get consent to search is because New Jersey was a state at the time, which has changed now, that did not follow the federal automobile exception to the written warrant requirement, founded in 1925 by United States v. Carroll, expanded upon in U.S. v. Ross 1982, and Wyoming v. Howden, and other cases. As a matter of fact, you want to know a lot about the cases regarding what we can do with the motor vehicle exception. A Wikipedia search on automobile exception is really badass, and it'll show you 25 things you didn't know about the automobile exception. That's just a quick side note for everybody. Now, what this meant was if I couldn't get consent, I had to call for a canine, get a canine alert, impound the vehicle, and apply for a search warrant. And I think in the beginning when I didn't know how to get a search warrant, that probably motivated me to deter myself from getting a search warrant. When it comes to consent, there's a few things, one, that I want to give advice on. You should know what legal consent is, and how you find out what legal consent is that you research cases from case law, appellate division, and higher on the factors considered for legal consent and when consent was considered voluntary or qualified as good consent versus bad consent. So you read the bad consent cases and you understand why they didn't allow the consent to go forward as the state tried to prove their case. And you read the good consent ones where the court said the state had plenty of factors in their favor to show that this consent was inherently voluntary.
So you're saying you should start with your state, not necessarily U.S.?
U.S. is a good place to go. Generally, most states, a far majority of them, follow the Supreme Court of the United States. But I would certainly suggest, especially in a state like Massachusetts and New Jersey, and if you feel like you're in a liberal state, I'm guessing Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, 100%. You'd be surprised how sometimes they deviate and sometimes they don't. You know, Massachusetts deviates from the fourth on some things, but other things lines right up with it. So I think collecting data on both of them, but certainly there's state-specific stuff, will be important for you to know what a good consent is. So having that valid consent, matter of fact, it even tells you how to get good consent and why it's so important. And it is an exception to the warrant requirement under the Fourth Amendment. And when it's done legally, and you're not conveying a message of deception or coercion, and you're acting professional and calmly and politely, these are all factors that they'll consider. Somebody relinquishing their right to privacy to a police officer is actually a very effective tool that saves us a lot of trouble and a lot of time and effort. And it can be done extremely professionally with respect to other human beings. And I think that to start with, people really felt like they could trust me when they met me. And I probably made myself feel a little differently than other cops did on the kind of kindness and compassion that I displayed, whether it was genuine or not, probably not genuine, because I had a goal and objective to discover illegal activity. And, you know, once you start to discover things, it becomes very, very rewarding as a police officer to find bigger and better things and disrupt crime. Now, with that being said, I think people felt like, one, they could trust me, one, they liked me, and I think they also felt like I wasn't going anywhere, and I knew what I was talking about. And if I could convey to them, like, look, the jig is up. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's a wrap, dude. I mean, we're gonna go. Here's the next steps. If you want to roll the dice, God bless. We'll go for it, but I'm not some fly-by-night rookie who doesn't know what he's doing. I have an answer for everything. And if you actually watch some of the volleying back and forth in some of my videos, I'm pretty quick to really display that I have the knowledge, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going anywhere. And these are some of my qualifications. And, you know, every situation dictates a little bit of a different type of approach. Sometimes you could lay it on pretty thick. Sometimes you could lay it lightly and play stupid, whatever it may be. But I was forced to, you know, trial by fire, man. I was forced to learn how to communicate in order to achieve what I considered to be important in law enforcement and how I envisioned my career. And that was to go out and interfere with criminals' plans. And whether that's a drug dealer, brother, I've found everything in cars on consent. You know what I mean? I have found stolen items, fraud. I found stuff led back to kidnappings and stalking. I've had stalking cases, right? I got a guy who's got manifests of this girl's things in Brooklyn, and he's stalking her. And I'm literally going through his shit, and I'm like, this motherfucker, because something was wrong. And I'm like, look at this. Look at this. This is cool. He's got pictures of this girl and da-da-da. Like, you know, and we were getting in touch with the NYPD, and they're like, holy shit, we got their detective bureau coming out and processing the car at this point. You know, so you're at reasonable suspicion, Dennis, right? And you're asking to consent there? So that's an interesting question, because a lot of police officers will express that they knew something was wrong. And unfortunately, in the eyes of the law, we can't just know that something's wrong. We have to be able to convey like a hunch. What is wrong. Right. Well, no, a hunch is one thing. I'm talking about specific and articulable facts known as reasonable suspicion. A hunch can be a hunch, right? We talk about a pretextual stop. You can have a hunch, and hunches are legal. You can't have an investigative detention on a hunch. You can do a consensual contact on a hunch. But a hunch, even in a motor vehicle setting, is a hunch that, based on your totality of the circumstances, not on any kind of bias or reasons, but factors that we teach in our classes, something may not be right. You can use a motor vehicle violation to effectually stop that vehicle and, you know, at least take some time to use other five senses to see if those hunches are serving you well. And if that hunch is correct and accurate, that will undoubtedly roll into reasonable suspicion, because, you know, we have created a document called the RAS checklist, and I want to invite all police officers to have a copy of it by emailing streetcoptraining@gmail.com or joining our Facebook group, getting verified as a law enforcement officer, and going to our files section. We have 91,000 members, all law enforcement, and downloading that and reading through a 13-page document that I wrote. And collectively, 20% of it was chalked up to the group contributing to it on factors that you need to cite in your report and not limited to these factors where you may be engaged or in the presence of criminal activity, whether it's before, during, or after the commission of a criminal offense. So, yeah, I would argue that why would you waste time searching cars if reasonable suspicion wasn't present? So, yeah, so reasonable suspicion always going to be present. The problem is police officers have a hard time recognizing what that is because of lack of training, lack of experience. That's basically it, right? And nobody telling them, just like you said, nobody told us about this stuff.
Yeah.
Guess what, Steve? Nobody told me either, but we knew we wanted to do police work, and we had to go outside of our agency to find men and women who were doing the kind of work that we wanted to do and ask and pick their brains.
Right.
So
we have some guys on, like, I call it the board in our county, because it's a county dispatch, that hit it hard. They kick ass. They're like, they're getting arrests almost every night.
It's not hard to do.
They're getting in cars. They basically, from what I glean from my years doing it, is if you have a major road through town and it goes somewhere, most towns do. You have some road that's the way they get through your town. You can sit there. There's these classes are the biggest part of it. Going to these classes and kind of like helping you delineate what you're looking for. Like I've seen like them teach, like, you sit perpendicular to the road. You're looking for certain, a couple guys together, cars maybe registered to a female,
Well, yes and no. And now you're getting into an area where, like, that's where training comes in, because it's not necessarily going to be that case. And
right.
We basically teach on reaction-based training in addition to other factors that we commonly see. But the reaction-based training is probably the most important thing, because that's where a lot of cops are having misconceptions about what we are actually looking for. If you look at Kenny Williams, and I don't know how much you've delved into our group on Facebook, but we have a guy, his name's Ken Williams. He's a sergeant in Hobart, Indiana, and he's probably top 10 interdiction guys in the country. And we say interdiction, that phrase has been communicated to mean a police officer or been coined to reflect a police officer goes out and tries to stop criminals on the highway. And I offer this is, if you're not an interdiction officer, what kind of police officer are you? Because why would you take this job if you had no intention of putting bad guys in jail? And by the way, if you write tickets, you're an interdiction officer. You are just pretextually selecting vehicles to meet your criteria. And I hear things like this: if you're 10, you're fine. If you're 11, you're mine. So I'm sorry, the people at 9 over the speed limit are not breaking the law in your personal opinion. So pretextually, you're waiting for a car that's doing 11 over.
Right.
So hypocritical statements from people who are insecure about what police work looks like is very comical to me. But when you take training courses, it really gives you new perspective and opens your eyes to how to be a successful police officer and legally. So to say that there's certain combinations, there could be some truth to that, but
I just threw that out there because that was just an example, but I've heard.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get defensive about it. I just want to be clear about it.
No,
so
yeah. Someone who's been to a lot of these classes was just kind of saying, like, this is kind of the things they went over. And, where I work, I've been told by these guys, these hammers that are doing it, they're like, it's the country. So it's, like one guy told me, he's very good at it. He's like, I'll sit on the side of the highway for 7 hours.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. And you know what to tell me about that guy? He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, this guy is really good.
Yeah, I bet. I fucking bet, dude.
He's probably been to your class. You probably know him, but I'm not going to say his name. But
yeah. Does he know us? Do you know if he knows us?
He may have posted about you guys, actually.
That's cool. That's great, man. Because you know what? We welcome it with all. Listen, we're glad to be teamed up with people like that. And our club is open arms to everybody who wears a badge. Even if you didn't like what we had to say and you now change your mind about it and you think that we're the answer to what you want, we're happy to have everybody. This is not just a secret society of police officers. We are trying and by the way, Steve, we have 32 classes currently. We cover a wide array. We have interview and interrogation tomorrow here at my building. It's great, man. I love it. I mean, because I've been to some classes similar. I haven't been to one of yours yet. I plan on it, actually. You're fucking missing out, dude. I know. Hey, I want to go for sure. But it's Massachusetts in May, brother. I think we're in Mass in May. All right. I'm pretty sure. I'm doing it. Boston tentative. May 10th tentative. I'm looking at my calendar over here. All right. I want the 10% discount code. I'll give you a free T-shirt. All right. Hey. That's not 10%. That's excellent. When you go to these classes, I've been on the road a total of 14 years.
10 years as or 11 years now as police, 4 years as natural resource officer. But, you know, it's like after 5 years, I went to a class called Polish the Badge. And it's where departments send 5-year guys. Because it's like, they might not be so excited like they were before. They're into this part. They had kind of like, they kind of have they compartmentalize police in their careers. The 1 to 5 guy, the 5 to 10 guy, the 10 to 20 guy. You know what I'm saying? So I went to the Polish the Badge class, and they kind of tried to address like, get re-excited type of thing. And it was like, the class was fine. But this stuff, like you're talking about, when we're just talking about something we do every day, motor vehicle stuff, you know, something you can get better at. You can get uncomplacent, you know, because it's so easy to just pull the car over, just look for speed, give them the sight.
Repurpose your why. Steve, we had people 21 years in the job who were like, dude, I never fucking knew that this is police work. And, you know, they get it a year later. Oh, look at the shit we're getting. Like, these guys are pumped, man. You know, just because you wrote tickets for 21 years doesn't mean you didn't want to write tickets for 21 years. Just nobody ever told you that that's unfortunately not police work. Right. I'm sorry. I mean, I'll stand by that. And it's intended to hurt your feelings and get under skin to promote progression and change. And I will make this argument. I actually held a sign up on Instagram, and it fucking flew. It exploded. But the amount of negative feedback we got from it kind of made me happy, because I did exactly what I wanted to. And it said, if you have time to write tickets, you have time to catch criminals. Use your time wisely. And people misunderstood it. Some people are people who follow us and know what we meant by it, you know, really stuck up for us. And, but yeah, other people are like, oh, speed kills. Like, yeah, so do fucking rapists and murderers that you could apprehend on the highway. They kill too. So, you know,
I think you're speaking to the complacency of it mostly. I mean, because clearly motor vehicle stops are police work, but what you're saying is they are. But with the intention to write a ticket, you know, are you winning the hearts and minds? Are you doing the most with what you're? Is that why you became a cop? To write tickets?
Right. Like, did you want to like catch bad guys or harass a guy who's late to work and be regarded as the dick?
Right.
And like when you go to a bar, somebody throws a fucking beer at you because you know, have no discretion and you're steadfast in your ways, and you're telling yourself this romantic story that you're out there changing the world through a book of tickets a day. And the answer is, it's just not true. It's simply not true. And people try to argue this. I say, you know what, we have a story of, this is just one of many, of a Kentucky police officer who was on the job for about 3 years and attended one of our training courses. And after attending one of our training courses, put the ticket book down, started opening his eyes, and started employing the tactics that we explained to him, and was able to stop a kidnapping of a 12 and a 9-year-old who were being sold in the black market in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And if he had been not taking that training course, and it even goes back to, if I had not convinced Kenny Williams to be an instructor at this company and to share his gift with the world, the question is, what would have happened to those kids? And so you want to claim that speed is important, and I think that the selling of minors who were kidnapped, and it was a legit kidnapping, like 2 children were kidnapped and were being sold off into whatever the fuck they were being sold off. A big job too.
Wow.
So when you say to me that speed's important, I say, how about, don't worry about running laser games with your laser tag gun game, whatever the fuck those things are, right? And start opening your eyes and see if you can spot something like this and interrupt that from occurring. Now, I got a funny feeling when you go home at night and you look yourself in the mirror, what you did to contribute to society when you got sworn in and said, I plan to protect and serve, which one makes you feel better, and you can reflect on how you spend your time appropriately, prioritization of your time, energy, and effort. And by the way, what I'm saying to you is, it's not your fault if nobody ever told you this, but what I can tell you is, coming to a class will give you new perspective, and we will show you how to do it. And we really think it's a good idea for all police officers to try to interrupt human sex trafficking and grabbing kidnapped victims from being sold in the black market. Yes, I will say this publicly, more than writing somebody for 14. That's just me. Call me crazy. Call me crazy that we've apprehended over 10 murderers due to our training, and they weren't able to murder. And the first one here in New Jersey for a serial killer who was interrupted by a gentleman who took my training only months prior, was able to apprehend a person who just executed a woman on the side of the highway, turned around and saw this cop, and something occurred, and this cop caught onto it, and they stopped future murders. Yes, I will argue that I believe that a job like that is so much better than teaching a 17-year-old a lesson, right? Especially with the hypocritical side of it as well, right? Like, you know, I don't think anybody should be, you know, I think there's, you know, I'm not saying it's not valuable and there's not any impact on, you know, motor vehicle enforcement. What I'm saying is I just think other things have more impact, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not arguing that one has no significance. I'm saying I just think the other one's just much more.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I love that the way you say interrupting criminals.
If we're not interfering with criminals' plans, what are we doing? Right? We have a guy, and I love this story. A kid messaged me months ago and said, you know, he was so thankful that we had given the training. And he says, you know, my chief says I always find trouble. Chief liked him. Chief liked the work. He was the first time he's seen somebody doing police work. And the chief was into it. You know, he says, my chief says, I always seem to find trouble. My response to him was,
you're a shit magnet.
Well, yeah, great. But like, what kind of cop are you if you're not finding trouble? What are you doing as a police officer if you're not finding trouble? What are you supposed to be doing other than finding trouble as a cop? And I don't think it's TikTok dances. I you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think if you want to do that in your downtime, and you can tell a lot of guys, hey, listen, God bless, do your thing, man. I do stupid shit on TikTok, right? But like, that's not what it means to take an oath. And you know, people will just, oh, times have changed, blah blah blah. You can't do things. That's complete horseshit. I mean, that is, you want to sell yourself on a fucking romantic story about the excuses you make as to why you can't do police work. You know what? If you work in such a bad agency or it's a liberal city, well, transfer, but stop being a bitch about it. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, that's what you say, bro. The job is to try to keep your pension. Really? Because, you know, you've got thousands of cops that we've influenced going out and doing this great work every single day. And you know what? They're not fired. They're not in jail. They're not in prison. As a matter of fact, they're promoted. They're moved to task forces. They're regarded. They're rewarded. They're absolved. They deflect litigation. All these things are great things that come out of it. You know what I mean? So please, if you're telling yourself some bullshit story, the only people that are going to sign into your bullshit story are the other bullshit people that you're friends with, right? No, you're going to complain and fucking bitch and moan and the job's not the same. I always tell new guys when I field train them, listen to me. You decide who you want to be as a cop here. Don't let anybody influence in who you want to be. Don't even let me influence it. If you don't want to go out and chase around all these bad guys and you're uncomfortable with it, don't let me tell you that that's what you need to do. You know, but don't let anybody tell you what you're going to be as a cop. And if you start co-signing with these fucking mutts over here and do nothing, and you came out the gate with piss and vinegar, and they sucked the wind out of your sail right away, you're making a big career mistake. So pick who you're going to roll with here. There's a few different groups. Us, we're the fucking cool kids, right? Me and the 11 guys that go out of the 200 people that work here, we're the cool kids. And you see these guys over there and upstairs, those 4 guys out of the 70 guys that are in administration, those used to be the cool kids that like the cool shit that we do, right? We're a group. You'll see us hanging out together. We get chicks, right? See the guys down the hall in the traffic division? Those guys play Dungeons and Dragons. Right. that you know, you want to go be one of those guys? God bless. Go be one of those guys. That's the group you fit in with. Those dudes will bring you to you know, they're dorks. So, you know, dude, like, be who you want to be. I'm not just don't pretend the truth isn't the truth. That's all. Just don't pretend the truth isn't the truth. And I listen to this. I would argue this all day. And by the way, if I'm going to argue, I'm bringing Tom Rizzo, who's our leadership instructor, with me, because if there's anybody who can litigate, I don't even talk. I just sit back and let him. I'm like, yeah, good. Talk to this guy. You ever see, how old are you now, Steve?
42.
Okay, so remember, and we're going to really date ourselves here, but remember the Rodney Dangerfield movies, Back to School?
Oh, I have it on VHS.
Yeah, you know what he's like? He's like, I don't fight. Lou fights. Yeah, right? Yeah. Like, that's how I feel like. I'm like, Rodney, oh, I don't fight. Lou fights. And he crushes the napkin holder.
Yep.
That's Tom Rizzo. Tom's my Lou.
That's awesome. I love it, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like an awesome crew. I got to get to one of these classes, man. You're motivating me right now.
Dude, hop in the Facebook group, man. You know what I mean? Like, we have just so much stuff in there that's free, and you don't even gotta. And we have online programs too. If people are chomping at the bit to take this training course, you could take it on demand, pay for it, and you still get a spot in class when we come around in May. So if a guy's like, well, what are you guys coming to Massachusetts? May. But you can take it right now, and the online program is wonderful, and it's even better in person.
Yeah.
And
We don't have a big budget, but my chief is pretty. He's my age, so he's pretty. Like if I bring a cool class to him, he's pretty cool about it. So.
Yeah, man. Listen, and by the way, like you don't think we know that people take the on-demand version and 7 guys sit around and watch it? I don't have a problem with that. You think I'm fucking stupid, right? Like you're just not getting 7 certificates, but right. I don't have a problem with it, man. I'll be honest with you. And I want you to come to class to get the full experience. People say that in class all the time. Like, man, watching it on demand's one thing, but being here is like it's like being in church, man. You could watch Joel Osteen all day until you're sitting in the Joel Osteen Stadium and you're feeling the energy. You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into it for sure. I mean that, and actually, a guy I work with too, I have in mind that would probably really dig it.
You just start getting a taste for it. Jump into the Facebook group, man. I mean, it's the Street Cop Training Private LEO group. It's a very powerful tool, and people tend to binge watch our videos once they get in. They're very, very informative. That's
what you want as a content producer. Binge watching is the best.
I mean, essentially, you have to deliver something of value.
Yeah,
and I've had people ask me, like, how do you have so many people in your group? How do you have people follow you so much? I said, because
what's your formula?
The formula is we have a very good product. And when they fucking take it, they go and tell 15 of their friends, if you haven't seen this, you must see it.
Right. That's,
and we're very proud of that. And with all humility. And by the way, we're not the only training company in the country that's worth a shit. But at the same time, there's other places that are shitty. So explore and I want to have everybody attend these training courses, even mine and other instructors and other companies, and with a skeptical hat on to say, I'm here to learn, but I'm certainly going to hold this group to the litmus test of whether it's actually valuable or not.
Yeah, I will do that. I mean, like I said, I have some years in. I barely consider myself a veteran, but I've been on for a while now, and I'm open though.
You got real thick hair for 42, by the way. Your hair is really not. You can see mine's a little sparse here, a tad. I've been taking Propecia for about 15 years.
Oh, really? It's working, dude. You got it all there.
Yeah, I'm the only Benigno with hair still, which is pretty impressive.
Yep, my buddy is works in Boston at an equity firm, and he started Propecia when we were in our 20s, and he's still got his hair. Everybody else in his family is.
I believe it, and I wish I would have started at 18. I would have had more hair. But, I actually get compliments on my hair. I care about my hair. I'm like John Travolta, right, in Saturday Night Fever. Right. Just give a fuck about my hair.
I go this way in my family. It goes this way. Like it goes further back, further and further and further. I don't get like the pattern baldness. It's like the
widow's peak.
The Bruce Willis, yeah. Just
the widow's peak.
Exactly. Yeah. It just keeps going. Dennis,
Steve, I hate to cut you short. Hopefully we're wrapping it, because if I don't get off this podcast, I'm going to piss my pants.
I just have one more question for you. Quick one, because people love this question. A lot of rookies and people going into police academy listening to the podcast. Advice for them.
I always have really good advice for rookies, and I probably will. I'm not going to regret what I say, but I probably will think that I could have said something better. And I'm going to just bounce off of what I said earlier is you decide who you're going to be in this career. Don't wait to be picked. Pick yourself. Every instructor at Street Cop Training has spent their own time, money, effort, energy, vacation days to go and be the cop that they want to be. So don't let somebody tell you who you're going to be, and don't feel like you're ever stuck. The advice I gave earlier about really picking who you are going to befriend at an agency and how you're going to mold your career will tell you everything. And I can't emphasize this enough. Your life is valuable, and the more you train, the better your career is going to be, and the more likelihood, or the more chances you'll have of sustaining and preventing any kind of mass incident happening. And I'm going to give this one too. Treat this job as if it'll take your life at any second, and you'll probably live. And unfortunately, you do have to stay in a heightened state of awareness as a police officer. So when you choose to do anything, if it's going to be a writing report, choose a place where it's beneficial to you tactically, where you can't be caught up and ambushed. And don't think for a second that it can't happen to you, because we are seeing it everywhere. And police officers being ambushed off duty, working security jobs with their guard down, working traffic jobs in a construction zone, being executed. I gave advice earlier on motor vehicle stops. If anything, you should learn tactically how to do this job appropriately that way first. We actually have a class called Street Academy And Jeff Smith, who was a retired sergeant from Ocean City, Maryland, does a phenomenal one-day program on all these things that are important, like wearing your seatbelt's one of them. But we just filmed videos the other day on how to do a foot pursuit appropriately and how to not come around corners so quickly and kind of expand out and come in, in a more tactical manner. And you've got to think about that stuff nonstop. We commonly learn this job as, the streets first, then the legalities next, and then finally we get into the tactics of, oh shit, I'm really being dangerous. And in fact, it should be just the opposite. You should learn this job tactically first and knowing how to approach situations safely, and then legally to know what you're supposed to do, what you're allowed to do by reading case law. And if you don't understand it, you can join our group, and we give a lot of, actually, if you go to our website and you're a police officer, we can verify that. I have a 4-hour program on the top 20 U.S. Supreme Court cases you need to be aware of, and it'll vastly change your career. And the last one is then learning the streets. It's a tough job. Don't let things beat you up. Any job, anything you do is going to come with mistakes. And you can mitigate those mistakes through training. And it doesn't have to be our training. I'm not trying to sell you. I don't need to sell you. So don't let somebody tell you who you're going to be in your career. Choose yourself. It's really it. And don't, just choose, if you see yourself going down a certain route, do what you've got to do, and don't let anxieties and fears dictate how you're going to behave. Use fear as a North Star. If you're scared of it the most, it's probably the best thing for you.
I love it. Words of wisdom. Dennis, it's been an honor, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, man. Hey, can you send us a copy of this stuff too?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll link Street Cop Training, your website in the show notes. I'll put it on the website, and I'll put it on the Facebook page. So I'll give you all that stuff.
Thank you, dude.
All right, man. I look forward to meeting you in person at one of your classes.
Likewise. Thanks, dude.
All right, brother. Take care.
See you.
Hey, guys, that was episode 90. Woo! That was a good one. That was motivating. I'm going to go to one of these classes. I'm going to make it happen. Founder of Street Cop Training, Dennis Benigno. Thank you, sir. Great pod. Great podcasting there. Yeah, guys, that's it for this week. Thank you for rating. Thank you for reviewing. Thank you for the support on the show. If you want to become a monthly donor, I always appreciate that. It's thingspolicec.com. Go there. And even just a one-off donation is fantastic. I just recently had to repay GoDaddy for the website and all that. It was a couple $100. So anything you can give is great. If you can't afford it or you just don't have the extra change, don't worry about it. The podcast exists to bring the stories, experiences from these men and women to you free of charge so that everybody can have appreciation for this profession. So I love you guys. Thank you. And I'll see you next time.